So I just want to thank everybody for helping. This would not have worked out. It just, Kimberly and I, the church has been very helpful in gathering all this together, materials and facility and advertising and so forth and so on. And we're glad that you're here. And we're actually, as we go along, we get to the demonstration part. We're going to ask you to help us again with the demonstrations. Yes, Susan?
I want to just tell you what light means.
Okay.
It's an acronym. Love, L, inspiration, I, grace, G, healing, A, trust, T.
There we go.
That's what it is.
Very good. Well, with that, I'd like to invite you to bow your heads as we start with the word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, when you gave Jesus to the world, he came down here and he used the very things that he had created to heal the people that he met. He laid his hands upon the people. He directed them to wash their eyes in the water. He used a poultice. He told about the Hezekiah's remedy. He pointed people to the simple things that their minds would be drawn to yours. And I pray this afternoon as we go through these demonstrations that our minds will be drawn to you as well. And that we will be blessed by your Holy Spirit and your presence. For we ask it in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We're talking about talking about charcoal. And you want to have it in your home, just like you do have a fire extinguisher. How many here have fire extinguishers in their home? How many have one in your car? You need to carry one in your car, a small one in your car. It may not be for your emergency, it might be for somebody else's emergency. And even if you can't use it, you can say, I've got a fire extinguisher here. So have one in your car, but also have charcoal in your vehicle. One day I went to, I was doing some remodeling on a house, and I had to go to the rental place. And when I got there, I took one look at the young man, and he was grimacing. He was grimacing in pain. I think the cords on the ground table, you know, that one. And I looked at it and said, boy, you don't look too well. And he said, I got septic ulcers so bad it's gonna lead to divorce. And he said, when I go to the hospital, I lay on the floor. It hurts so bad. So I just happened to have Kimberly wanted me to bring me a bottle of tablets. So you come up here with bring me a bottle of tablets. Well, I happen to have some charcoal in my truck glove compartment.
Not the right
No, it's not. There is one here somewhere. I saw it.
oils.
I don't know.
Oh, you have to get
We'll get it. Just let me get past this one stage here. So I told him, I said, what you need is some charcoal. And he just kind of looked at me, rolled his eyes, and I knew it wasn't going to work. This is not going to work. I said, you need to go to the pharmacy and get some charcoal. They have charcoal at the pharmacy. And he looked at me again like, you're from the third world or somewhere else. So I knew this was going to work. So I went to my truck, I got a bottle of tablets, and I gave it to him and told him to take charcoal tablets. And that was it. I got my tool and I left. And I wasn't really all that hopeful he was going to do it. But he was clearly, his face was just contorted with pain. There it is, right there. I told you it's right. And I left. It was 2 weeks later. I came back to deliver the thing. No pain on his face. He said, that works. I am symptom free. I said, well, just take it off my rental tool. Now, I told him, he said, I said, do you do coffee? And up in Canada, Tim Hortons, I don't know if you've ever. I don't know if you were ever in Canada, but every corner has a Tim Hortons, like they have a Walgreens here or a Starbucks. And everybody drinks coffee. When it's really bad weather, the Starbucks, the Tim Hortons church is always open, but all the other churches are closed. Tim Hortons is always open. So I said, you need to quit drinking coffee. And I knew that went nowhere. Just, he said, I'd rather divorce. Okay, we're not living here. So but when I saw him, that he was symptom free, I saw him again 2 or 3 months later. He says, you know, I've quit smoking and I've quit coffee. This thing was a springboard. It was a springboard for him to think about more in his lifestyle. Isn't that wonderful? That a little simple thing started him. I don't know where he ended up, but this isn't the first time I've seen that. But people just need a little bit of oomph to get them going, get over that hump, to start thinking about other things for their health. Amen. So again, never underestimate little things. They work if you have them, and then you have to get into the habit of thinking about handing them charcoal or something else. Just for your information, we have some websites. You might want to jot this down: charcoalremedies.com. That's an information-driven site. It's the same name as our book, Charcoal, the book, charcoalremedies.com.
You know, I looked it up last night online, and SDA bookstore sells that.
Yes, all the ABCs carry it. It's also on Amazon, and Weimar has it, and a lot of them have it. But anyway, we also, our business site, our business is called charcoalhouse.com. Kimberly did a blog, Charcoal Times, and a lot of the news is on there. A lot of the pictures will be on there that you will not see on the other website. So between that, we started off with charcoal, bioactivatedcharcoal.com, and that was our business site. And we use that mostly for commercial and industrial customers, but there are also retail products as well available. But we're trying to steer people more to Charcoal House for retail products. Kimberly deals with all kinds of customers, literally. She deals with NASA, she deals with the military, and then she'll turn around and take a call from somebody who has a stomachache. So it's a very diverse customer base that we have, and we also made a set of books for kids, and they're called God Made Me. And we, I think I showed you a little bit last night. There's actually 3 books here. The top book is for the children. It's the activity, their book. Then there's a book also for activities and for a teacher to go through. So it's designed to give like a class of maybe 12 kids. You give them each one of these, the student, and then the teacher has an activity book and a teacher's book to follow along. We have used this when we were in Africa because all the kids want to learn English. Parents want their kids to learn English, so this was a great tool. We had children's class going on at the same time, and they used this for their teaching anatomy and physiology. And one little girl said to me, I said, how's it going? No, I talked to her father. And he said, I asked my daughter, she came home and asked me how many bones I have in my body. And I said, who cares? She said, well, where are your kidneys? Who's teaching you this stuff anyway? And they found out, and he told her, you go back there and you learn all you can. We are supporting a orphanage school. I think there's 500 kids or so. And they went out and they sold these in the community, and the public school system started using them as a textbook. The Catholic Church, the Pentecostal Church all took them because it's very basic. It's built off by physiology and anatomy.
And that includes the Sabbath.
Say that again.
Includes the Sabbath.
Yeah, it doesn't say Sabbath, I don't believe, I think it says the rest day. God's rest, day of rest. We just left it that way. But the plan is if we keep doing this, we're going to publish other books. Okay, that's the housekeeping, I think. Here's a short list, and there's a longer list in the Bible. Come on in, folks, we're glad to see you. This is just a short list to show you the range of toxins, whether they're natural or whether they're man-made, that charcoal absorbs. Everything from amphetamines all the way down to what's blocking this.
Thank you.
The cups. Cups.
There we go.
Move the cups. There we go to Valium. We've had people who have, I remember one kid phoned and he said, well, this absorb THC.
Yeah.
I said, oh, yes. He said, hey, click.
Wistful.
And then we had a mother call, and she said, my son's going in for a urine test in about half an hour. Do you think this will, and we know he's contaminated. Well, do you think this is going to help? And I said, I think it will if he takes lots. Well, how much is lots? I said, lots. I mean lots. I was going to make sure he was going to take more than he possibly needed. And she convinced him. And I said, you know, you need to take. She called back a few days later and said, you know, pass this test. 30 minutes. I said, well, I think now it's time to teach him some other options for entertainment.
Yeah.
There are better options out there. So hopefully, I don't know what the rest of the story was, but we're there to hopefully generate some interest, right, in everybody to go the next step. You'll also see here that it also works for heavy metals, including mercury and radioactive metals. There are some there on this list that doesn't work that well for aluminum, beryllium, manganese, vanadium. But we sell these masks. These are made from charcoal cloth. I showed you yesterday the Army military, their military suits have charcoal cloth woven into it, and they had that nurse had one of these on. This does everything that those 2 canister tritium masks weighs like a feather. And we could not keep up with these when COVID broke. We were going full tilt, for months, so we could not keep up because they work so well. But the American Academy of Toxicologists and what is it? And dentists, they use these when they're removing
A different one.
yeah, different masks, but they use one of these sensitized for mercury absorption. So they use these as part of their protocol. And then they have a charcoal mouthwash. So American Association of Toxicologists and anyway. Here they have this on their site showing mercury vapors coming off of a 25-year-old silver filling dipped in hot water, 1,000 times the EPA limits. So again, this is part of the example why there's a new emphasis on options as far as dental fillings because of this. There it is, IAOMT, International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicologists. That's the okay, got it.
They're private.
They're their own association. So I mentioned that it's also used in kidney and liver dialysis units. You know, it comes out, goes round and round. I think this is a hemoperfusion cartridge, and then which is granular charcoal. It looks like one, and then back in. And this keeps millions of people going around the world. And most kidney dialysis machines and charcoal is actually cleaning the water because the water is always contaminated that comes in, whether it's chlorine, chloramine, or heavy metals or you know, pharmaceuticals that are dissolved in water, whatever. So they use that charcoal to clean the water that cleans the blood. But now they have a dialysis machine that just uses charcoal. And then, as I mentioned, also Dr. Hilbrand at Loma Linda developed a liver dialysis machine that is basically milking the blood over a bed of granular charcoal. Cholesterol and triglycerides. This one is from the Lancet, way back in history, 1986. 2 tablespoons 3 times a day for 4 weeks. Total cholesterol down by 25%.
Wow.
LDL, which is the one you want to look at, right? Down 41%, and then it doubled the ratio, which is another thing you want to look at. And the triglycerides, 76%. So this is not new science. This is old, been around for a long time, but it's just not a money-making regime. But you can use it. And anything from tablets, capsules, but in this case, they're using powder, 2 tablespoons of powder. Can you, sweetie, can you get me that detox? Did you bring one out? We're gonna have people sing it all. So get ready for that. Just a little bit of an explanation here, and Kimberly can refine what I say on this. We have on the back table 2 kinds of charcoal powder. You want to bring the other one as well, and come just show them the green one. One is made from hardwood, that's the green one. The blue one is made from coconut shell. When we started off, the only one available, this is years ago, the only one really available on the market was the green one, hardwood, and everybody used it. That's how I got started on charcoal. But since then, we found out, and because of our business, largely because of our business, and because we do sell to medical facilities, the premium charcoal of choice is a coconut-based charcoal, and that's the one in the blue jar. But they will interchange. If you don't have one, if you don't happen to have the blue one, use the green one. You don't have the green one, use the blue one, but the blue one is more expensive. It's sort of the Cadillac of activated charcoal, medicinal charcoal.
And this is the top of the line. It's made in Europe and such, and it's just it's steam activated. It's a USP grade. I can only say grade because I'm not a pharmaceutical company, but the pharmaceutical companies that purchase directly also from the manufacturer, it is actually certified. Okay, I cannot say it is. Okay, and is steam activated, water steam activated, which makes it more ideal for taking internally. This one is chemically activated. There is steam activated hardwood, but it will then have a much lower absorption, right around 700, where this one is around 15 to 1800 for its absorbency, its ability to hold toxins, chemicals, and such. So when I say chemically, you kind of freak out a little bit, but actually it's phosphoric acid, food grade phosphoric acid, which is the exact same stuff which is in soda pop. And so taking it occasionally is not going to be a big deal, but if you're going to do a cleanse, you're taking it daily basis. I take 2 tablespoons every day, and this is the one that I use like when I do a charcoal detox and such. This one, as far as the coconut shells we mentioned yesterday, absorbs radiation, and okay. Oh, okay.
Yes, glad to see you. Glad you came.
It absorbs radiation, and it also has an extremely high surface area. The surface area is at like 1700, and all the other coconut shells are right around 1100 and such like that. So there are differences in charcoals, and charcoals, there's a lot of differences that go on forever.
Now, you've already heard us mention that charcoal really does not absorb nutrients. Is cholesterol a natural nutrient? Right? It's a lipid, our body needs it, uses it. So is that a contradiction to what I've been saying? Well, they don't. they don't really think that the charcoal's binding up the lipids. They think it's somehow affecting the gastric juices that retard the digestion of fats. In fact, one pharmacist who had, I think he had 3 pharmacies out east, he actually went online and said he had a weight reducing program with charcoal. And I said, this isn't going to last. He can't put that on the internet. They're going to shut him down. And sure enough, he lasted about 3 or 4 months, and then he disappeared. You just can't make those kind of claims. But we're not advocating charcoal for weight reduction. Here you're seeing whatever the mechanism is, the end result is what most people are looking for. And they want to drop their lipid count, and this is very, very significant. Kirby mentioned Dr. Cooney, chemical engineer at the University of Wyoming. He wrote this book called Activated Charcoal and Medicinal Applications. The reader should be convinced that ever new uses for the remarkable substance known as activated medicinal charcoal will continue to evolve, and it has. Every week we hear of something new, including 2020 Rice Medical Center, Texas A&M Medical Center, and Texas University Medical School, all collaborating on a treatment for COVID using this charcoal right here. Now they did soup it up. They did something to it, and you and I cannot do that. But the point is, they can't sell, they can't market this. They have to do something to that product to be able to market it. They're not a charitable organization, they're a business. So I don't mind that at all. But nevertheless, they started with that. That was their base ingredient. So you can use that. It will work. And we'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. I mentioned to you Buckminster fullerenes, the C60 molecule. It looks like a soccer ball, but it's very expensive per ounce, per pound. It's far more than that now, way up there. But these fragments of these super molecules are found in common charcoal. You can find them in common charcoal, more prevalent maybe than even in activated carbon. So God's hand is not shortened just because we cannot get C60 molecule of Buckminster fullerene. He's made sure that these powerful, the most powerful molecules on planet Earth, some say, are found in common charcoal. It's amazing. So this is what we're talking about, right? Everybody knows what charcoal looks like. They've experienced it. We were in southern Florida last year about this time at a survival camp meeting put on by Avon Park SDA Church. And at the end, somebody came up to me and said, John, Kimberly, would you be willing to give a short thing for the kids, for the Pathfinders age group? And I looked at, I was exhausted. I was just wiped out. And I said, okay. And I walked over there, and I don't know, about 20 kids, and they were wild. I mean, wild.
They were good kids.
Wild. I thought, this is not going to work. And I was looking around, and I saw a fire pit. And I walked over to the fire pit, I picked up a burnt piece of wood, and I walked in front of them, and they're all making this noise, and I went, attention! And he knew what I just saw, he knew.
But they all didn't do it.
Come on in, let's play it, let's see it. Come on in. So they were riveted.
Yeah.
I mean, and then they come on in, they would come up and they all wanted to chew, and we're in COVID and they're all chewing on this same piece of stick. And I'm thinking, this is not going to go over well with the parents. But anyway, it went really well. It was hilarious. But I'm not sure I would do that again. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to do it for you folks. So why on earth would we use anything like this for medicine?
It works.
Works. In fact, there was a website, Charcoal Works. And a friend of mine started it. And we've taken over the acronyms on Amazon. Charcoal medicine, safe, simple, and scientific. Find me any other natural remedy that's more science research behind charcoal. I don't know of any other product. The literature is crammed with research, free of adverse effects, faith inspiring, easy to give and easy to take. And again, why? Because when we have world calamities, right? What are you going to do? There's no electricity. The fridge isn't working, or you're a long ways away from transportation. Transportation doesn't get in. And your water's filthy, dirty, and you can't drink it. And here you have a product that will filter your dirty water. I mean, we sell charcoal to people who have swimming pools for end time emergency, and they want charcoal to be able to pump their chlorinated swimming pool water through so they can make it potable. But we sell charcoal to large municipal aquariums. We sell to them. I don't know who all you sell to. I know you tell me about them from time to time. But again, these are some of the conditions that would drive the person to thinking for a simple remedy that or solution to this very, very large problem. And here's an example. Nuclear fallout. Does anybody remember this scene? This is Fukushima, and you can see right here, well, something's here, and the flues actually go up, and the air comes through these air exchangers, these giant air exchangers, anywhere from 8 to 12 tons of coconut activated charcoal that cleans out radioactive particles before it goes up into the air. Isn't that amazing? But nobody in America or anywhere else heard that charcoal is the universal antidote, is the #1 antidote for radioactive toxicity.
Oh.
Never did you hear it on CNN or even Fox or anybody else for that matter. But we heard that you Californians were going out and buying potassium iodide tablets as a remedy for this toxic radioactive iodide. And I'm not going to go into why. But in the meantime, here's the remedy of choice. And it's a lot less than $100 a bottle that potassium iodide was selling. So again, it used for all kinds of calamities. People were running around with masks, and this takes it out. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what's the difference between taking the tablets and taking the charcoal, the powder?
Well, what's the difference? In
Well,
taking-
it's just sort of, the tablets are more designed to be sucked on and chewed. They're really ideal for children. And they're not really meant to be swallowed like an aspirin. I know some people will do that. They're really ideal for, like, if you had a sore gum, or you just wanted to put it on where you have an abscess, whatever, you can just pack it in there. A sore throat. We had a nurse years ago who had called us, and they had a really bad flu or something come through, lost a lot of patients. All the staff got sick. He was the only one who didn't, and he said, I was just popping these constantly. And so, and then the capsule it's a vegetarian, they all are vegetarian, of course. And it's neater and cleaner. And so you wouldn't be able to necessarily use it for in your mouth and such like that as to packing it. But I pretty much carry the capsules with me. I get really bad headaches if I'm a little skittish about maybe there's MSG or some excitotoxin or something. I'll take I know it's a lot. I'll take 6 capsules before and 6 capsules afterwards, and it pretty well will ward off my headache. And even sometimes
It's less expensive.
Yeah.
Than obviously taking a bottle of
these are
tablets or
convenient.
capsules. So that's what I gave to the guy at the rental shop. That's all I had in my car. Right.
Well, you use the tablets way more.
Oh yeah, I tend to, the least bit of sensitivity on my teeth at night, I will talk about maybe three tablets on each side of my mouth and go to sleep. Yes.
So your charcoal. That one you just showed us.
Yes, this one here.
If we have nuclear radiation in the air or whatever, how long would that last? Would you advise?
It's always working, like, that's why it's in a sealed
How
pouch.
Yeah, it gets.
You're gonna
How
have it.
long would you recommend?
Well, the IOMT Dental Association, what they do is they have a glass jar and they'll write the date on it, so they'll,
It's 80 hours for the dentist.
it's only guaranteed for 8 hours. Once it
80.
comes out of this package,
Okay,
because it continues to work, it will not stop working. Can't say, okay, I'm done with it.
okay, but anyway, for the dentist, and the dentist is a different one. It's 80 hours, okay? And, so they'll just keep track of it and they'll put it back. We didn't used to have this nice of a, bag, and we've got the best bag we could find. And, so you can put them back in this bag, or a lot of times they'll just put them in a glass jar. And we used to give them a chart, kind of ran out of those, and they keep track of them. Now, for surgery or something, it's like a one-shot deal. Okay, so when people are using them, I know the dentists are doing the surgery, but so if you go on our website, you'll see a dentist using them, and they use other masks as well. So it's not exclusively this, they'll use another mask over it and such. But anyway, if like this one, the HE Plus that are using in the medical, like they're doing a surgery, it's a one-shot deal, and they are spending, there's no doubt about it. Now, if I go to India and you're in those little cars and, they're backed right up to the buses, I don't know how long they're gonna last. Mine, actually, I should have brought more, but I wore one and I knew it was still working, on the plane. So I used it for a whole month, but it's $1 million question. I have no idea, when you're using it personally, because.
When you're not using it, put it in a sealed container. And it'll probably last for months and months and months. If you use it once a day for an hour, it'll probably last for months. But eventually it will load up. And you cannot reactivate it by putting it in the oven.
Or putting it in the sun, because that's a big myth out there, that you can set activated charcoal outside and they'll be reactivated, and that's just simply not
That's not
true.
true.
I'm thinking, so it's a good idea if I'm traveling by plane to take it during the.
We just had a medical doctor call us, and she always loses her voice when she flies. And which makes it really unpleasant, because she's actually going to speaking engagements. And she said this was the only mask, she said, that she did not lose her voice. It really worked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
It's more comfortable than a liquid.
I'm not gonna say they're not super comfortable, to be totally honest, as far as warmth goes. I mean, they're not uncomfortable to wear it, it's not, but it's, some have a vent in them. I mean, they really work. But, can they get a little uncomfortable? Yes, they can. Like, you're on a 17-hour flight, it's gonna be a real pain. And, they get warm,
Yeah,
just being honest.
okay, so again,
Oh, and I'm just gonna mention, we do have these kids tablets, and everyone's gonna ask me what the difference is. Nothing. We just made them so a label to make it attractive for the children. Get a little monkey tablet in you and just make it fun. So
yeah, it's selling, right? It's all marketing, and when you have a young child, I'm not putting that in your mouth. Then you gotta figure a way, we're gonna show you something here.
We're gonna talk about how to utilize the powder.
Yes, and
Okay.
I'll let you guys see it. That's some.
we're going to,
Yes,
Real rough.
no, it's not messy. Oh, don't, you didn't say anything.
So it's.
And I'll bring it in.
no, you don't want to bring it in.
Oh, that's done. Okay, we'll get to that point, but, the doctor that I studied under, Dr. Agatha Thrash and her husband Calvin, were great fans of charcoal, and she was the one who encouraged me to write this book. And I'm not gonna be able to find it now. There it is. And so she gave me some stories to put in the book. And she said My little grandchild accidentally sat down on a hill of fire in in Georgia, Alabama, and if you've ever experienced a fire ant, you can imagine what more would feel like. Instantly, hundreds of ants began biting her. She screamed hysterically from the intense pain. We grabbed her, stripped off her clothing, and ran for a bathtub. As it filled with water, I added charcoal. Didn't say how many. After being submerged in that charcoal for less than 2 minutes, she stopped crying. The charcoal neutralized the poison. Her pain was gone. Lady is a pathologist. She's a medical examiner for the state of Georgia.
And just like with the charcoal salve stick, you could just put it on and you'd be surprised how quickly it's gonna go to work. And just as we were talking about putting it in the bath, this would be the ideal one for bath because it has a little more grit to it. It washes off easier. So the coconut shell is super fine. It's just, it's almost like a mud. But this one is suspended a lot easier and washes off easier, and it's the ideal one. Oh, and the hardwood also is called mesoporous, which means it captures a wide variety of molecule sizes.
Which one do you use over here?
If I were to do a detox on my head, well, to be honest, I kind of use, a lot of times I mix the two of these. You know, I had somebody that was doing like after radiation treatment, and she just did this exclusively. You know,
And she touched on it. I'm not sure we're gonna have time to delve into some of this real physics of charcoal, but it has to do with their pore structure. Anyway, she said charcoal has amazing healing properties. In fact, if I was stranded on a desert island and could take only one thing along to protect me from pain, disease, infection, and injury, I would choose charcoal. Well, I wouldn't. And I lived on a desert island out in the middle of the Pacific, and I would not take charcoal.
And that was your only one thing.
If it was the only thing I could take with me, I'd take waterproof matches. Then I could make my own charcoal, I could cook my fish, and I could set up smoke signals when you're looking for them. But when I was on that island, I got necrotizing fasciitis on this leg. I happened to stub my toe, didn't think anything about it. I saw scars on all the people, didn't think anything about it. And then it hit. And it didn't stop until it got to right here. I had holes in my leg, that tremendous fever. But when I finally applied that charcoal, it stopped within, it seemed like it stopped in minutes. My fever was gone. I had already made peace with God because I didn't think I was going to make it to the next day. But it stopped the spread instantly. It's right here. And the last one here was about that big around. I could see bone. I was using my Leatherman to pull out the dead tissue. So it was on its way. There was nothing to stop it. And it would have probably done the end. But it stopped that infection in its tracks. It did absolutely nothing for the pain. A pain I had for weeks. And I'd go out into the salt water, and I just let my leg be washed with the salt water to clean it out. And I survived. By God's grace, I guess he decided, you folks need to learn a little bit more about charcoal. Yes, sir.
So were you not into charcoal that much when you got that, or?
I hadn't written the book, otherwise it wouldn't be in the book. But those were odds and ends of experiences that I've been gaining. And then that was what the push was. Well, all these other people have these experiences. Let's put it together. Some of them. I mean, you know, you shared yours last night as a physician, and there's other people here who've had their experiences, and we'll never ever be able to put them all in one place. But the hope is that you will have your own experiences, and you can put it in a. You're going to put them where? You're going to put them on here. You're going to take a picture, a before and after picture. You know, when somebody's face is just, where's that picture? I'm getting off track here. Let's get back on track. What is charcoal? It's burnt wood in the absence of oxygen. These are giant beehive caves, kilns in America, because they use charcoal for what? Well, for heating, for one thing, but they're using it for smelting metals. And that was before they went to, what was the next thing after charcoal? In fact, I read a story that in Europe, they actually clear cut in almost all of Europe for charcoal for the development of smelting metals. We talk about clear cutting. Anyway, it's charcoal in the absence, it's wood in the absence of oxygen. And it can be made from different sources. In this case, it could be peat. We've already mentioned hardwood, coconut, but it can also be made from coal. And there are macadamia nuts and switchgrass. And they have all kinds of different waste products that they're trying to utilize, whether it's lily pad, not lily pads, but in the Everglades, they have all that, what was it, water? And so they're trying to, they can use it there as well, but the problem is transportation. They have lots of raw materials, but the transportation which drives the price up, and so they're trying to convince people to use local produced charcoal, biochar in their soils. But when it comes to activated charcoal, that's a little different animal. And that's what we're talking about mostly here, that we've been showing you. Now, graphite is a carbon, right? But you'll notice that the carbon rings are all layered. Layers, and so when you drag that pencil across a sheet of paper, the layers of graphite fall onto the sheet of paper. That's how it works. And then you have diamonds who have no real, they have a very geometric structure to them that's all reinforced. It makes them a very hard mineral. On the other hand, when you get to charcoal, it's very amorphous. There is no defined structure to it. It starts off much more dense, and then when it goes through this activation process, it carves away layer after layer after layer internally and leaves this very porous structure behind. So porous that, for instance, on a soccer field, 1 teaspoon of charcoal with 1 teaspoon. If you could unfold all that surface area, it would cover soccer match. Wow. And that's that surface area that industry and commerce uses so extensively. Whether it's to clean water, air, or pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, clean soil, foods, beverages, all kinds of things are polished and cleaned with charcoal because of this huge surface area. And everybody mentioned forest structure. This is where you get designer charcoals. We sell 20 or more charcoals, grades, but there's actually, probably a couple hundred different commercial industrial grades of charcoal that we would never have anything to deal with as far as medicinal applications go. But it all depends on these cracks in these microscopic cracks in the charcoal particles. And at this point, it's called macroporous because it's large enough to take on these larger molecules. And those would be colored molecules, maybe large proteins. But as it comes down, it gets down from macro to meso, meaning middle, and micro, meaning smallest. And the coconut is micro, and the charcoal is meso to macro, and coal is macro. It's used most hydroelectric plants. They will use the coal-based charcoal to clean the air. Now, getting into human application, food poisoning and poisoning GI infections cause 80% of all disease worldwide. This is old stats. This is about 5 years old. 50,000 deaths a day, 5,000 deaths a day just from diarrhea in Colorado. Now, the symptom is with just these few illustrations here. What's the common symptom? Diarrhea and vomiting. Diarrhea and vomiting, diarrhea and vomiting. And what's one of the symptoms, or two of the symptoms of COVID? Good. God's grace. Anyway, so that's one of the reasons why I mentioned those 3 universities who are studying how they could use charcoal as one of the treatments for COVID. We received a number of years ago, before we went to Africa the first time, we received an email from a young man who ran an orphanage in central Uganda, and he contacted us. He said, he found our website and said, do you think charcoal would work for HIV/AIDS? And I said, I'm not really, I don't see how it's gonna eliminate it, but it should help significantly. And we heard back from him, it might be about a couple months, and he said, it works. He said it works for about a day and then they have to give more of it. But on a steady basis, they have more energy, because why? If you don't have diarrhea and vomiting, of course you're gonna have more energy. The body has more resources to do what? Deal with the other things that the charcoal's not dealing with. So yes, for him it was so positive, he invited us to come to Uganda, and that was an amazing experience. Amazing. This is a red colobus monkey in Tanzania, and it eats charcoal. I would have monkey want to eat charcoal. All things. Smart monkey.
Interesting.
That's so you can go bird.
And you can go on YouTube and you can see groups of monkeys coming in and invading areas where they burnt trash, and they'll eat the charcoal sticks. And I took a short video where we live. There's buffalo, and there was a herd of buffalo, and I could see them foraging in this burn area, and they were eating the burnt sticks.
Why were they eating the charcoal?
Well, in this case, the monkeys eat mango leaves and almond leaves that are high in protein, and their offspring are more, and they have a better survival rate, birth rate, and they're more robust and energetic, the offspring, because they get the protein from the leaves. Unfortunately, the leaves are high in a particular chemical that gives them very bad indigestion. And through many, many millions of years of evolution, they figured out, but they had to wait until man came along. And once man came along and started making charcoal to cook the food, the lights went off, and they went and started stealing the charcoal from these charcoal manufacturers. Now, I don't believe it. I really personally, I do not believe that the world is that old. But nevertheless, these opportunists will steal charcoal. And we even found a picture online of an elephant going through a forest where there'd been a burn, and he's blowing smoke. He's blowing ashes out of this trunk to clean the charcoal. So he can eat the charcoal. It's amazing. So these animals have figured something out, but it's too bad that most of us have not yet figured this out. Now, you don't have to be out in the African jungle. You can go somewhere, even a church fellowship dinner, and you can eat something that's not sit right, and you're going to toss and turn all night long instead of going to the emergency room. And usually 10 minutes of any one of these charcoals, and your complaint is history and you can sleep. It works that fast. But if you travel, there's all kinds of things you're up against: bad water, bad food, bad air, infection, cholera, dysentery, anthrax, insect bites, and the list goes on. I worked with one doctor a couple of years ago in on the Rwanda border. And he had treated Ebola. He said he was the only. He is absolutely positive that the charcoal helped him recover completely from Ebola. But it was a hard sell. I could not convince anybody else. And there's all kinds of people dying. And he was in Northern Africa at the time. So that was before I met him. Yeah. Okay, I know you don't like this slide. I don't know where it came from. We had a mix up, so anyway, we're gonna have some volunteers. If you don't volunteer, I'll call you up. And we're gonna have you, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have asked it this way. How many of you here have never drank charcoal water? Okay, 2, 3, oh, come on. 4,
Never.
no,
It's showed it.
we'll get there.
So let's just.
On a double.
You're doing this, not me. You get it done. You're good.
The dosage for the guy that had Ebola and recovered.
Okay, so I work, Leo and Pauline lived with us together. The boonies in British Columbia, Canada. And Leo was making a glass of charcoal water. And Leo's this dude, and he's just drinking it down. And here we are in, this is on the Congo border again. And we're putting on a program. And everybody asked, does anybody here would like to come up and try some charcoal water?
No, what I said, remember? But asking, so it was really kind of funny because there was a few men there and he asked if some man
Yeah.
would come up.
Oh, that's right.
He asked if somebody would want to be a man and come up and drink the charcoal water, and all these women charged. It was hilarious.
Open your jar over a sink, not in your living room white rug. So she's going to show you what we did. So there we are. We had some ground up charcoal powder, and we had 1 cup. And we had all these. This was not all of them. They all wanted charcoal to drink, and so we invited them up, and we started off. We just told them basically, we just want you to, be a man, drink it up. So he said that, and there was only 1 man who came up. That's weird. So you're gonna, why don't you make one, Kimberly, just to show everybody what you're doing here. What are you doing?
Just using water.
So you put the water in first.
Yes. You always want to put the water in first. And like when I'm doing it at home, I just let it sit. So I'll just put the charcoal in and just walk away, and then it'll just go below the surface. Charcoal doesn't dissolve, but it's just stays suspended, but it'll go below the surface and then I stir it. Yeah.
I found that when you have it hot, the really fine powdered charcoal, it's really hard to get it to
Correct.
go down in there, so I found out that if I put
Just
it in
shake it.
a small jar,
Correct.
put a lid on it, shake it, then it works good. And
Yeah.
Because even if I just try to take a spoon and
Yes,
stir it,
yes.
that powder is going
It's
to
pushes up.
work.
But if you do let it sit, it will go below the surface. And so the way you do it with the shaking, that's what I do with
Well,
man.
we only have 1 cup. We don't have a jar.
So we had a little dish thing down there and we just kind of rinse it out a little bit. They didn't care. I didn't care.
So, with 1 cup, we'd hand it to the next person, and then we rinse the cup out and we put that charcoal water in this thing and we set it underneath the table. And then we went from 1 to 1 to the 1. So that was getting a little bit of charcoal water there. So they just kept coming up and coming up. How did this happen? Looks like I got another screen here, so I have to tell you the story. All these women took the charcoal water. But I had noticed a man coming in, holding his hand like this. I don't think I have that picture here.
Sure.
It's not, I'm not seeing it. Well, there it is. Okay, so we continued on. This woman has an abscess. And number one cause of death in Uganda, number two is HIV/AIDS. It's quite prevalent. And I'm getting there. So while after we did the water thing, people were drinking all this water. Did you make one here? Who's gonna come up? Come on up.
I haven't started yet, they can hit it that short time, and we've already started sinking below the water. Surface of the water. And that's it.
That's pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
And
Let her do it.
I was gonna say, is it gonna stain my teeth?
Terrible. Black teeth forever. Drink it in one shot. Be a man. Let's see.
Doesn't taste bad.
Okay, how much?
Thank you, sir.
Let's see.
Tongue and mouth, all black.
So do it slowly, so just go ahead.
Let's see. Good. You see? Oh, yeah, permanent stain.
Right, it's like you did in black. It's brushed off. So I take 50 minutes every night, I switch to my mouth, and I put a little tape over my mouth, for like, this for my mouth, and say.
Cheers.
And
Thank you, sir.
it's just.
Yeah, before you,
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
before you,
so I have. So I have to create my dentist was fairly. You want? Yeah. Okay.
yes.
So then you want to do it really slowly, you're stirring right away.
Now, normally there's charcoal left in here. So just, you take a little bit of water, put it in there, swish it around, drink it, don't swallow it, just swish it around your mouth first, okay? And then swallow it, just so that when you go out in public, you don't scare anybody. Who's next? There you are, come on up here, come on up.
Well, I would just.
No, come on up. They can't hear you correctly.
So I have my main triggers, which I think says. And I don't know about quantity or quality of the coconut.
Right. We have had the odd person who's sensitive to coconut. But it's very, very rare. But again, if you want to take a smaller amount and just experiment, you're welcome to do that. But it is an individual thing. When if the coconut is pure like this, you've got down to almost 99.99 carbon. And there might be some by that point when it's USP grade, these other micronutrients have been cleaned out. But I'm not gonna push that. equation here.
So
So,
like I said, I don't know the quality and the quantity, I think has something to do with it, because who can resist a maximum cookies? So.
there you go, go ahead and pour yourself some water. And go ahead and carefully, don't do this yourself. Spoon out some charcoal powder.
Oh, yes. Actually, it was.
Where's your spoon? Very, very carefully stir it in. Remember the charcoal is used in fireworks?
Yeah.
Kind of gotta push it down a little bit. We had this one person, she got some charcoal and she left it on her kitchen counter. What would you like? She left it on her kitchen counter and she went away for a few days and left her German Shepherd loose in the house. And when she came back, her white living room rugs were no longer white.
Was that? Oh,
Sure.
oh, okay, good.
With that,
Yeah.
I actually think I'm sort of.
Did you drink it all? Very good. What does it taste like?
Quite pleasant.
Is it, this one is not very gritty, but if you were gonna take this, you'd definitely be able to tell the difference as far as grit is concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Have you ever talked to? Okay, folks, we've got lots of cups here. You're looking like you've never tasted this before. How about?
Michael?
Yeah.
Thank you. Michael. What kind of?
You can hold your grandpa's hand.
You don't want to try. I'll take Michael's. Yeah, I'll take Michael's.
Okay, we're on the other side. Here's your cup. Are you against using tap water? You use charcoal to filter tap. We got one, so here's some water.
Sit here.
Just don't fill it all the way up. You know, you got things of spoons. Spoon for you. And here, go ahead. You put yourself. Purple. That's good, that's good. Gently. Gently put it in. There. Put water in there. Your spoon.
Then mix it up.
Slowly, mix it in there. You don't want to get it jumping out of the glass. You come. Okay. Is anybody else hiding their face? Why? Come on up. Yes. Come on up. Yes, okay, the two. That's it. In the meantime. You didn't come up, you never really. Ah, thank you. Over to us. It's in a rush. There's. Now, if it's a good quality charcoal, you should not taste anything. kind of has a no taste to it. Some will taste, you'll think you're tasting some sweetness to it, or not. It's-
How much dark will there? I mean, we're
Bone sure, we'll come to that.
because I where I tasted charcoal
Don't.
taste like.
Yeah.
If you make bone char,
I don't like, but
Yeah.
it's, yeah, it's different. So what's it taste like? Nothing really.
Yeah.
Yeah, distinguish it.
It's tiny bit reason.
Be a name,
They use charcoal free wood.
flavors.
Tell them the story about that guy, though. You don't have to.
Yes, it's coming.
It's a chocolate.
Like
Yeah,
chocolate.
it has a texture. You're right, it has a texture, but really no flavor. It's kind of just stirred me on. Anybody else?
Does it make your teeth black and red?
Yeah, it is, this is the coconut.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just go ahead. Have our seat. Thank you.
Watering first. Water.
Thank you. The whole thing, or
That's good, not right there. It's good.
then it's,
Slowly. Slowly.
okay.
There you go.
That is not what-
A little bit more. That's a good place to start, yeah, that's good. Slowly.
And then you just add it.
Use the spoons. Don't hold it close to your lips. Don't wait for you, because it's splash on your lips.
So I wore clothes with black. Thank you.
Go away, you want to see it?
Can I?
Has anybody keeled over yet? Are you still okay? Okay, swords, medication. Not necessarily all medications, but if there is it has a propensity to absorb medication, so that would be a caution that you would have. It's used to clean pharmaceutical drugs. So if you're not sure if it is interfering with your medication or this person that you're trying to help, you could tell them to use charcoal superficially. Like, for instance, you had diarrhea and vomiting. We had one woman who was taking a ridiculous amount of charcoal orally. It was not helping her.
Well, no, it was helping her, but she had, from some organic food or whatever. She had gotten serious diarrhea, and it was causing, she was taking upwards to 20 teaspoons a day just to keep it, under control. And so she was really blowing through the charcoal, and she was calling and blah, blah, blah. And, I tried to talk her into doing a charcoal poultice over her stomach. And, she just didn't want to hear it. And so anyway, one time she called and I suggested it again, and she said, really, you don't understand. And I said, well, why is that? She says, I'm handicapped and it's just very difficult for me to make a charcoal poultice. And I said, okay, okay, that's okay. So then the next time she called, John got her. That was when he still answered the phones. And he said, Georgia, you should really use a charcoal poultice. And he said it, and somehow she figured out that she could do it. And so, and that was that. She did the charcoal.
Now, this is how you can make the kids, you can make a game out of the kids. And that usually breaks the ice. If the children see mom and dad use it, or grandpa and grandma, and make a joke out of it, and you show them a mirror, that forever after, there'll be no problem. In fact, they'll probably come to you and ask you, oh, I have a bad tummy, can I have some charcoal honey? And that's not unusual.
No, but anyway, so she did the charcoal poultice over her stomach, and that was the end. It finally took care of it. She didn't have to take copious amounts of charcoal internally. We find that when you do take the charcoal internally and you use it topically, it works faster. We had a guy who had pancreatic cancer, and by taking it internally, the cancer so progressed that it really cramped his stomach, so he couldn't. But he did do it topically, and it's an amazing story. But yeah, so John one time had cleaned out a chicken coop at this old farmhouse that we were renting, and he got really, really sick.
I got histoplasmosis. You know anything about histo? It's
So he was vomiting and anyway, I would give him charcoal and then he would throw it up. And then I would give him charcoal and he would throw it up. And I gave him charcoal and then he threw it up. The fourth time I gave him charcoal, so we kept it up. We didn't say, oh, the charcoal didn't work. So we just kept giving it to him. And the fourth time it seemed to pause. And so he was able to go lay down in bed. And he lay down in bed and made a huge poultice, and by morning he was fine.
Where did you put the poultice?
anybody else want one for a second? Come on up. We have some more takers. You do this? Very good. Spoon. Spoon for you, and remember, it kind of splashes, so kind of put it up here. You have more water.
Just water. So always put your water in first. If you don't, you'll be real sorry.
It wants to jump out of the cup. If you put the powder first. There you go, that's plenty, yeah. There you go. Gently, put slowly. Don't do anything fast. But as you mentioned, there's a much better way of doing this. Get a jar that has a lid on it. Put the water in, put the charcoal in, cap it, and shake it. And if you go to a hospital, that's exactly what they're going to do. They have a little bottle, about yay big, and it has a pointed lid on it, and they'll add the water, they'll shake it up, and then they'll clip off the top of that cone-shaped thing, and then they'll squirt it down you. At least that's one of the products that we've seen. There are different ones. Some of them are pre-mixed, and some of them even have sorbitol as a sweetener. But what you're trying to do is get that charcoal down. And I thought, Kimberly, didn't we bring charcoal toothpaste with us?
Yep.
I didn't see any back there.
Then maybe we did.
Anyway, sorry about that. So back to our storyline here. Kimberly is putting these charcoal on people's as a poultice.
And then you said your histoplasmosis poultice, how big was it? How much did you tell us?
In this case, the poultice is some paste and a large Band-Aid. That was the poultice.
When you were sick.
Oh, when I was sick,
Yes,
just across the abdomen.
so like 12 by 12?
Yeah.
What, to make the paste with the charcoal, do you, just get it water, just water and charcoal?
No, it's always best to add something to it, like ground flaxseed. Sometimes they use aloe vera gel with a little bit of coconut oil or olive oil. The reason being, if you just mix it with charcoal and water, it'll dry quite quickly.
Okay.
And not just because of the drying effect, but when charcoal is wet, it has more drying power.
So the fact.
It works both ways, but has more drying power when it's.
Mix, percentage wise, how much?
We have it all on in this brochure back there.
So what you've just taken is what you would have taken in a hospital for accidental poisoning, drug overdose, attempted suicide, something like that. That is what we would have taken, only it would have been a little more convenient, right? It would have been a bottle with charcoal in it, we would have added the water, clipped off the top, shake it up, clip off the top, and drink it. So you just had hospital grade charcoal, medicinal charcoal. But there's occasions when you don't have that opportunity. And when we were in Africa, charcoal was everywhere, and so we showed the people how to grind it up into a powder. And we had ground up a whole bunch of this stuff before the program, and then you just asked about mixing it with something to make it a thickening agent. Well, there they have a lot of cassava or tapioca powder, and so we had a bunch of tapioca powder pounded up into a very fine powder, and we mixed that with the charcoal and the water to make a paste. That's what she's putting on here. We did not have any American or activated carbon, just using the charcoal from a fire pit where we got in the market. Now, here's the woman after that. We never did see what the outcome of that was, but there was a man who came into this program. It was in it's like a schoolhouse, and it was very, very hot and humid, and they had speakers outside, and they were blasting it out into the community, and people kept coming. They were looking in through the windows. It was just squeezed into this facility. And I noticed this man come in like this. And he walked in like this, and he was grimacing, and he went to the back of the room and sat down. And I watched him for a while we were doing all this other stuff. And I said, is there anybody in here that has a wound that would like to be, put a charcoal poultice on it? And he made no motion to get up, so I just asked him, please come. And he came back up, and this is what he presented to me. It was his, it had been crushed badly, and this was several months old, and it looks bad. This is a moss that he had used as a bandage, so it makes it look even worse.
Yeah.
But there was so much pain, and he hadn't been able to sleep at all because of this pain that just was not being resolved with anything. And so I looked at that and I thought, what are we going to, Lord, I don't know what to do with this guy, you know? And you're going to come across the same experiences. And after when you've gone through well, maybe not here, but maybe you will. Maybe you'll go to a foreign country and do something there. I don't know, you're traveling. So the thing that came to me was, oh, we'll just soak his hand in charcoal water. What did we have underneath that table? All those women. This is of water and charcoal from cleaning out with that one cup, right? So we set that down, and no, just to one side, sweetie. There you go. And I soaked his finger. This is my interpreter, and this pastor, and he's looking at this. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. These white people, and I was just praying. What do I do? What do I do? And we did this for a few minutes, and then I wanted to send him on his way.
You were gonna just make a charcoal, but I said, no, we've got to let him.
So I was gonna make this poultice and send him on his way, and get him out of my, out of my sight, because I didn't know what to do. I was at a total loss how to deal with this guy. And so anyway, Kimberly convinced me to have to soak it a little bit more. And the pastor is thinking, this is nuts. Now, is this a happy camper? This is not a happy camper. Not always a lot of pain, but it's not slept for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
So we sat him down and we continued on with the talk. And in a few minutes, he forgot about his pain. Just sitting there. He forgot totally about it. He was enraptured with the speaker, I guess. But everybody just could not believe that we were talking about something that's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not something that you have to go looking for here. Everybody cooks with it. Well, it got late into the evening, and by this point, he has no pain. I mean, the finger looks terrible, but no pain. So I said, sweetie, can we give him a poultice and send him on his way? And she gave me permission, and we made a bandage, and we put it around his finger, and we gave him some extra materials to take home with him, some gauze and some charcoal powder and some tapioca powder, cassava powder.
I think you even made it up for him.
We made the one, we did dress it,
No, but I mean, we sent him home with this gel.
yes, and when we wrapped this one separately, and then we wrapped the other one sort of like a splint and tied them together so he wouldn't be bending as much. And sent him home. I actually stopped and he didn't understand English very well at all, but I said, would you mind if I pray with you? And so he said, so I prayed with him and sent him home. And I did not think we'd see him again. Here's 24 hours later. This is his own bandage. Is there any difference happening here?
Mhm.
Yes.
In the light of the eye, the light,
Yeah.
the eyes of the light of body. And he's giving his testimony how he slept. There's no pain. He made a bandage, and he told everybody to mark it about charcoal in his wounds. And he's Muslim. Muslim man. Giving his testimony. Pardon?
Is that the interpreter next?
Yeah. Again, incredulous. It's like, I don't believe what I'm seeing with my own eyes. Doctor, were you gonna say something a little bit earlier?
Oh, I'm just gonna mention, the thing that people need to remember when they're gonna take it by mouth is when you start feeling sick, get the charcoal down before you're nauseated. Because it'll break the cycle. Once you're throwing it up, it doesn't do you as much good.
Dr. Thrash said that often is the case, but if you'll go 3 changes, and usually by the 3rd or 4th, it's stopped. You've gotten rid of everything. And whatever's proceeded further down, the charcoal will catch up to it eventually. But yeah, Kimberly's the same way as you. The first twinkle of a symptom, a little bit scratchy throat, a little bit of congestion.
Oh, we had this is before COVID, we had something really bad come through our workplace. And they, every time someone got sick, they were sick for a week. And John got it, everybody, and then one day, and I take my charcoal every day, but one day, I just started feeling I just had a little scratchy throat, and so I went and took my charcoal. Then I felt like, I feel like I'm getting a headache. I went and took my charcoal. I did this about 7 times that day. Every little thing I felt, I went and took charcoal, and I was the only one that didn't get sick.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was working at this university in Africa. This guy came in and he had a motorcycle accident and it punctured his leg. And it was quite bad, and it was put on antibiotics. And it looked like it had healed over, but it only moved it up here and it started another abscess. And he came in on 2 crutches and said, sir, do you think the charcoal, he'd heard about charcoal. He said, do you think it would work? And I said, well, let's do it. And so I mixed up some charcoal, some paste with some cassava powder. I did not have any activated charcoal. And I packed it, not in a poultice, I just packed it in and then wrapped his leg. This is 3 days later, and it's a little bit hard to see, but there's granulation happening here. There's no pain. He came walking in. He says there's no pain, and it was already healing. And it heals from the outside in. So any charcoal it will just throw it off. If it's a wound like this, it'll usually just throw it off as it heals towards the center.
Do you use the fine charcoal or the coarse charcoal?
This was very coarse because it was hand ground from just plain charcoal.
Yeah, you don't wanna go in there and make them think they need American stuff. You know, cause then God is not really loving them. I mean, they've gotta have something close at hand.
Now, this is Willie. Willie was the guy who invited us to charcoal, to Uganda. And he's up giving his testimonies about how he used it for this and how he used it for that. And on, he was talking about how it worked. And we've been there some years before, so he was willing to come to this program and give his testimony. And after his testimony, he's the guy that ran the orphanage for HIV kids. After his long testimony, he's extolling charcoal. His wife came up. Now, when we had left previous time as a parting, I said, "Is there anything you would like?" He said, "Your charcoal," because we did have some activated charcoal. He said, "Can I have your activated charcoal?" I said, "Sure." So we gave him our activated charcoal and we left.
No, and then he said, do you think it will help with, his wife's pregnancy? She always miscarried. Okay, and so she would get a few months, I think the furthest along she would got was maybe 5 months, and then she would miscarry. She would miscarry the baby. And so we said, you know, I don't know why it would work, but it's not going to.
She had fibroids, and how that influenced her, I don't know, but anyway, folks, here's the living proof. This is a charcoal baby. You don't agree, right?
Yeah, so tell the rest.
Well, she's giving her testimony, and I tell you, everybody started clapping and saying, "Amen, amen." Because in the culture, you know, it's to have family is your support system, and everybody was just so happy for this young mother that she was able to get pregnant.
What was, how she took it? The charcoal.
Internally,
Orally. Yeah, just
drink it every day, so we just said, just try it, just take it every single day. And we don't know why it would work, whatever, we said,
Just over.
nothing, just oral.
Just
So her cousin couldn't get pregnant, period. And so she suggested to her cousin that she start trying taking charcoal, and she's 3 months.
I think it was fun.
All right.
You weren't there.
I know.
She was pregnant, and the place went wild. The women were jumping up and down. They were so happy for her. This little girl, she was out taking care of the cows, and somehow the rope got caught around her neck, and the cow went running, and should have taken her neck off. And this has been going on for months. It's just not healing. So they brought her up one evening, and I'm thinking, "Oh Lord, I don't know what to do. How do you treat this?" And so one of the people said, "What about charcoal?" I said, "Yes." And so with a flashlight, we sat there and we mixed up charcoal with a flashlight, and we put it around her neck. And again, it's a little bit hard to see, but that's all the rest is already healed over. This is a couple days later. I mean, there's a lot of vitality there in this young girl, but you know, she was so, and everybody just can't believe that this is the same girl. Well, we did the program, this evangelistic series, and with the health part first, and then we had the evangelistic series, and I think there was something like 50 or 60 people that came forward and wanted to give their lives to Jesus as the divine physician, not just for the body, but for the spirit, for the soul. And ultimately, you know, we want to direct people to the great physician. That's our goal. We would want to introduce him to them, and then we believe that that friendship, that acquaintance can grow through other means that God has. But we can be God's hands. We can help people. We can start very, very simple. You can see what we've shown you so far is very, very simple. It's pets and livestock, and we're going to show you now a little bit about animals. We don't what's the word, shy away from experimenting with charcoal on animals like they would for drugs, right? So whether it's poisonous plants, laminitis in horses, drug poisoning, animal feed, parvo, wound dressings, wounds. Now, I hope you're not too squeamish. This horse got hit by a truck. And they wanted to put the horse down. And the people said, no, we're gonna try. This was, I think, in Belize, British Honduras.
Jay,
Where?
Jay the horse.
And he's been hit in different places, so he's got charcoal here and there and all over him. That's 5 months later, and they never used one stitch. There's no stitches were ever used. So this is what you saw.
His sheep.
That was the poultice.
Oh, yeah. Wait,
Isn't that amazing? Here's a Doberman tincture. These are all.
John, you wanna just go back
These
to
are on the
one?
internet.
Oh, they are.
These are already posted if you want them.
Yeah. The cat's dead.
That one, huh?
The cat became dead.
The bad one, that
thank you.
Her cat.
Yes, somebody in here yesterday told me about their cats and dogs. Was it you folks? Yeah. What did you do? Stand up and tell us what you did.
Mixed chocolate with water and.
Was it? It's just. Stand up,
Oh, yeah. I use water with chocolate and.
speak up. Yes, water with charcoal.
Putting them on. So,
That's it.
Well, what was the problem?
I'm not so sure, maybe it's some, poisonous or from the.
Yeah, that's how I give the charcoal too. I put it in this syringe for my cats.
Very good. Okay.
Wait, one day, it was not going better, and not how long you wait for 2 days, and then you. And after.
Very good. Thank you. Did you folks also have a stand?
You know, we have a cat that's, we do have a cat and a dog. So the dog had a diarrhea. So we decided, my wife says, you know, we have some charcoal, give them charcoal as a drink. And they drank both. They were very happy, they liked the charcoal drink. And they both, you know, no problem. After a day, everything was back to normal.
Okay, this dog has a cancer and it can't walk. This is a cloth that that is used in that mask that I showed you. It's a non-sterilized cloth, piece of cloth. It's Johnson & Johnson uses this cloth in their own retail product called Actisorb Silver. It's a pricey wound dressing, but this is the cloth just by itself. And they wrap the wound, and this is 2 hours later he's able to stand pain-free. And then another 4 weeks later, it's healed over. Now,
They were gonna put them down.
yes.
Oh, my.
Now, we don't have all the series of pictures for this next one. Kimberly's gonna tell you the story. But it is online. There's a whole. This is a colt. No, because there's too many pictures, so just use these two.
So you
This
can go
is-
online on charcoalremedies.com and put in brown recluse, and you'll see all the pictures. It's really nice. The lady, this horse was their baby. I mean, they had seen some brown recluse in the barn. They knew it was a spider bite. And they had the vet on it right away, and she was giving them antibiotics, and also they were putting colloidal silver on it, but it was breaking forth, and so they shaved the area and it just busted open. And on the 7th day or 8th day from there, they called us and we overnighted some vet detox, told them to give it to the horse internally, okay? And then to just make it up with ground flaxseed and charcoal water, and then just pack it. It was on the neck.
At this point, the lady said you could look down the windpipe into the chest cavity.
And so anyway, we did it, they did it, and
This is
Yeah,
this is 9 days later. There's no human concoction that can do that. Not that we're aware of. On the neck.
it's on its neck.
So you could look down
And
the
they were
windpipe.
just, they're just
Into the chest
surprised
cavity.
that the hair and everything was growing back after 2 weeks.
And I told you about this story about the guy with leprosy. You could see his heart beating, and the doctor taught the staff how they apply charcoal. And after 6 weeks, he was healed over and went back home. Here's our dog, one of our dogs, past dog. She was always getting into trouble, eating poison, and then recovering. And then she got tied up in a barbed wire fence, and we shaved her and stitched her. It got to the point where she did this more than once. And she just sat there shaking and let me shave her and then stitch her.
Yeah, but this one was a veterinarian.
So this is 6 days later. We are there. Now here's another story that Kimberly will tell you.
Oh, this one, this dog was trespassing, and this is a local dog where we live. He was 150 pounds, and the neighbor on whose land he was trespassing shot at him. He got his ear, okay, and it didn't hit his brain or anything. And so the vet stitched him up and sent him on his way, and then he just busted out in pseudomonas. And anyway, so he was back at the veterinarian's, and she's our neighbor, and she has come on board with charcoal greatly. And then we'd be out walking, and she'd ask us about charcoal help, and I said, yeah, I think so. And so anyway, she finally had the dog. He had already lost 50 pounds, and it did look like it was going to make it. They had sent in a culture to some place for dogs, and they said just put him down. They have one human drug, and it's not going to touch it. And so she had the dog put into her name after the owners agreed that she could do this experiment on him. So she called us in, and we went in there, got the dog shaved, and all we did was just direct him what to do. And so we used the vet detox. We combined it with aloe vera gel. I had a whole jug of, I don't usually use this kind of aloe vera gel. I like this lily of the desert, but I had a big jug of aloe vera gel that you can drink. We mixed it with that, lots of the vet detox, and we added some olive oil, you know, just to make it so it wouldn't dry out on him. He was literally covered, okay? And they did have him down there because under some anesthesia because he was getting mean because he was in so much pain. The next morning, they didn't know if he was gonna make it through the night. The next morning he woke up and he was hungry. And he started improving. I would have kept him doing more, like they kept it up really at the very beginning, then they would back off and not doing so much of the charcoal, and then he'd break out in hot spots and such. But anyway, they started getting, you know, they kept it up, and this is him now, and this is after the fact, and he's actually turned into Night the dog. And then the real benefit of all this, his owner's daughter came and worked for us.
So how much longer was it from the incident to that picture?
You know, I can't remember. I think it started like in January or February. It was a few months. It wasn't like an overnight sensation. I mean, it was overnight how it was helping him. He didn't look too old. I would say more than 3 or so. I don't know. What was that?
That's very healthy, right?
He was a breeding
yeah.
dog. He was a breeding dog, so he's a very, very expensive dog, and that's why they were willing to run the expense of trying to save it.
Yeah. But they said that he's actually a much nicer dog now, temperament-wise.
Okay, one of our customers was a calf ranch outside of LA. They had 6,000 head of calf, and they had a PR problem with odor. And they were using about 200 pounds of charcoal powder a day to feed to their calf herd. But it worked out even better than they hoped, because The charcoal took care of the scours, which took care of the odor, which took care of the flies, which took care of the mortality. So it was a win-win-win for them. And here's an example. This study was actually done in Korea, but it involved Okinawa, National Livestock Research Institute in Korea. And they went out and they gave charcoal, encouraged these small farmers to use charcoal on their livestock. And you can see here you have milk cows, fattened cattle, pigs, laying chickens, and broilers. And they were giving them very, very small amounts of charcoal in their feed and in their water. And you can see prevented mastitis. Now, if it prevents mastitis in cows, is there a possibility it might help women? You think? Increased milk production. How does something black increase something white? I don't know, but it did. And so it was a win for them. Fattening the cattle, they improved the meat quality. Pigs, the reduction in bad smell and flies, and of course, reduction in mortality. Laying chickens increased egg production, longer laying period, and increased egg weight. We know that's true. Kimberly has her own small flock of chickens, and they're range fed. And those chickens, they're spoiled. Wow. And broiler chickens, I can never figure this one out. It says a general reduction in mortality. How do you increase the lifespan of broiler chickens? Well, they survived, more than survived on the way to the slaughterhouse. And died. Now, this is just for rats. I don't want anybody to extrapolate anything from this thing. It's just for rats. Focus is an interest. He's a gerontologist in Russia. And way back, he showed that by giving old laboratory rats that were done, their lifespan was basically done, he gave them this very small amount of charcoal and increased their lifespan by 34%, extended their lifespan by 34%. Since then, they did one in University of Paris, and they used Buckminster fullerene. Remember I showed you that a little bit earlier? And they were able to extend the lifespan of rats over 9%. But they had they figured it would have been even more than that, but they had to end the experiment, execute the animals to finish off their experiment. So they were sure that it would have gone further than doubling the lifespan. Here, greens and flowers. Golf greens, we've sold charcoal to golf courses to make their greens greener. Terra preta, this is in Brazil, where they found these areas that go for hundreds of square miles of man-made soil that were made by the Incas, right? And these huge, extensive tracts of land are filled with charcoal. They call it terra preta, black soil. And here's the soil 40 feet away from this one. This is 400% more productive than this. And the major difference is charcoal. Charcoal works like a coral reef in the soil. And so in the ocean, you have a coral reef and all this biomass, all this, the fish congregate there, and it becomes an ecosystem of its own. Charcoal creates the same ecosystem in the soil. And one of the fungi, maybe anybody heard of mycorrhizae? The mycorrhizae inhabit the charcoal and they start developing this bioreef in the soil. Susan? Yes, that's all it is. These people did not slash and burn. That's typical in Central and Northern South America. They made giant piles. They would cut the trees, pile them, and make charcoal, and then turn that into the soil. Literally hundreds of square miles of man-made soil.
But ash is not charcoal.
I know,
So-
Okay.
sometimes you can scream out. So if you were to have the charcoal together.
Yeah, there would be.
Well, they've learned how to do that, maximize so that there's more charcoal and very, very little ash content. And we sold charcoal to, these giant pumpkin growers in the east. And they were able to win contests. They really babied these things along. Charcoal was not the only thing they used, but they believed that it gave it another advantage. So it's very, very competitive little sport. And here is a company that made biochar, and they were throwing charcoal outside their facility, and they noticed that things were growing better. And so they dug a ditch, and they put in, there was no charcoal, just plain charcoal, and then charcoal that had been treated with like compost. And you can see the difference, just with charcoal, nothing else. But what happens is charcoal initially will tie up nutrients in the soil, so you really need to give it some time to develop. Now charcoal, the techie word is biochar. And biochar is really catching on. It's one of our newer, well, it's not new, but it's becoming a larger customer base for that.
The biochar is not activated charcoal.
Right. It's just plain charcoal. It's what we would have used in Africa. It's just plain charcoal, but they, you got to dress it up a little bit, so you call it biochar. Tim Flannery said biochar may represent the single most important initiative for humanity's environmental future. And he said that back in 2007, and now there are carbon credits. And this, I'm not going to discuss the politics behind that, but nevertheless, they recognize that charcoal is one of the major things to sequester carbon from the air. Have you ever been to where there's been a burn, a forest fire? What color does it turn after a forest fire? Often it will just turn lush green. And the reason is that the charcoal captures nitrogen from the air and fixes it in the soil, but it also pulls carbon out of the air and fixes it back in. So carbon is not only carbon negative, it's part of carbon, now it's carbon positive. It actually pulls carbon from the air. So next time you have a campfire, you'll have a lot more to tell. And this is what we're talking about. And I like to draw the parallel between charcoal and Jesus. He has no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. The result of poison is death. The wages of sin is death also, it says in Romans 6. And then I noticed a few other texts. Behold the Lamb of God which taketh away the sin or poison of the world. One of the things that's very remarkable about charcoal is its nature does not change. So when it loads up with poison, it's still charcoal. It does not become poisonous just because it's holding poison. You can reactivate it, and it's pure carbon. It's non-toxic. The poison just goes away. He was manifested to take away our sins. Poison in him is no poison. Isn't that amazing? Charcoal is used to make black molasses into white sugar, and dirty vegetable oil into pure vegetable oil, and still not be contaminated. God made Christ be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God. Well, this to me is an amazing illustration of how God loves us on a very grassroots level, that he's placed remedies for us out in nature. You don't have to be here in America, you can be anywhere in the world, any one of these places along these flags here. You can find charcoal and it will be there and it will help you. You can use it. But you've got to be brave enough to try it sooner or later. You're not going to be able to sell it to somebody else who's sick if you haven't really, you're not going to have that enthusiasm to try and encourage somebody to do it unless you've already tried it, right? And so experiment. How many here did not get a free charcoal stick? You have not gotten one. There's a few people who did not get one yesterday. And we have some free charcoal sticks, and the reason they're free is because they have a Red Cross on them, and the American Red Cross took exception with us. And we had a run of about 25,000 units. We can't sell them, so we've been giving them away. But if you've already been given one free, and you want another one, you'll have to buy it. It has a Black Cross on it, but it works just as good, and we hope we will. I don't know. It's
Well,
not
there's
true.
$7.95 and then there'll be a 10% discount here.
And no sales tax, so,
But I just wanted to say something too, like I had mentioned yesterday about reaching out to people. One time in this little town that we lived outside of, we got to know the postmaster. And I can't remember what the problem was. It was some email problem, but I told her I would come over and be happy to make a poultice and show her how to use the charcoal and put it on and such. So it was in the middle of winter and I went over to her house and it was just like 6:45. And I went into her kitchen and showed her how to make it. We made one and everything. Then her boyfriend came over and then pretty soon he was on the computer. And so anyway, got her onto a couch and then she flips on the TV and her favorite sitcom comes on. And so anyway, I just like, well, okay, this is where I'm gonna put it and blah, blah, blah. And got her all settled. And normally I just want to have prayer with people. Nothing was conducive to prayer. He was on the computer, she was watching the TV, she was laughing. And it's like, I left, okay? So we did all that, I left. And I just went home and told John it was a really major flop. And I really felt kind of, bad about it, but I did what I could do. And then lo and behold, she was a postmaster, so she had somebody put a note in my mailbox that next day, and just a really delightful thank you and whatnot. And we've remained friends on Facebook ever, since when I moved and such like that. And so you never know, even though it just looks like a real flop, you do something, you reach out to somebody and go, it didn't go anywhere. And you never know, you can't discount the power of a seed.
right, power of one. We're going to shift gears now from charcoal and do some real demonstrations. We're gonna make some poultices, and we're gonna ask you to come up as a patient. And we're gonna ask somebody to come up as a physician assistant, nurse practitioner, nurse, or not, and do the poultice on somebody else. And then they will do it on you. So we're gonna make, I guess we're gonna need this, but we're gonna make these poultices, and then we're going to do some hydrotherapy demonstrations, or a light demonstration. Just some very simple treatments that you can do in the home, because really, I was trained as a hydrotherapist, and I believe that water is the most powerful of all the natural medicine that we have available, whether it's a hot foot bath, a heating compress, or something for the eyes. It is an amazing, amazing therapy. So we showed you this one last night about a very oversimplified diagram of a fever mechanism, how from pathogen the body reacts, produces antibodies, stimulates the temperature, which stimulates breathing, which stimulates the heart rate, which increases blood circulation, which increases the circulation of white blood cells, and the blood pH, which all are directed at fighting the pathogen. So the fever is not bad if you can control it. And hydrotherapy is a great way of learning. Use some body mechanism that God has given to us and be able to hold it in. I used to work for Disney World as on their draft horses. I took care of their draft horses, and you really have to hold it in. But there's a tremendous amount of power there, tremendous amount of power to move big weights. But if you let it go, it becomes extremely dangerous. And so I'm not going to say it's extremely dangerous, but God has given us this immune system. If you learn how to harness it and work it, it can do amazing things for you or for somebody else. So we're going to do some treatments, a light treatment right off the bat. This is one that I learned from an internist. I thought he was nuts. I thought, how can a light bulb help you? You don't need a blanket. I just put this blanket on for comfort reasons. And Mark, you're going to come up here and sit down. Hold on, I forgot to ask you. Is that okay?
I don't know. Now. Did stage fright, in a hurry.
Can you stand up for just a minute? And bring the chair back, so this cord will reach.
John,
Kimberly,
where are the sticks, the free ones?
they're in those small boxes, it's right on the corner of the table. Okay, I remember one of my pastors, when I was in Canada, he said, "Oh, John, I said, I had this chronic headache forever. My sinuses are just killing me." His wife was a nurse, an RN, and they tried different things, and it haven't worked. He says, "Is there anything you think you might suggest to help me with this terrible congestion?" I said, "Yeah, Pastor." He's a young guy. I said, "Yeah, Pastor, I think a light bulb would be just the trick." And he said, "John, quit, you're always kidding. Stop kidding. I'm serious, this hurts." And I said, "Well, we're gonna do this. You have to plug the light bulb into a wall first, but don't put your feet in hot water. This is not a hot foot bath and a light treatment at the same time." So, let's see, we're gonna do. So, he had this sinus problem. How many sinus cavities do you have up here?
8.
Bunches. You have which ones? Frontal, maxillary,
Mandibular.
and what?
Mandibular.
So you have basically three pairs of sinus, right? So you have the frontal, and in often cases it's the frontal. And what happens, it can't drain. And so we have found that warmth will cause cause it to dilate and allow it to drain. It's that simple. It's nothing extravagant. But you take a cloth, dry cloth, and you just place it over the eyes so the person doesn't see stars forever. Right? And Mark, I'm gonna get you to take one hand on either side and just hold it. No, one on either side. There you go, on the other hand. And then you turn the light on. And then you give the light to your patient. And you tell them to bring the light bulb as close as is comfortable to them. And that way they will not burn themselves. But you may, because you don't know how hot it is. So don't press so hard. Mark, let go of this right hand. And I'm going to put the light in your hand. And you're just going to bring it up to the top, to your forehead, where it's comfortable to you.
Okay.
12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Usually within 12 minutes, if it's going to help, within 12 minutes, it will decongest. Sure.
So anyway, when we were living in Nova Scotia, and my sinuses were really bad, I had a lot of pain in my gums. It was just so painful. And so I did this. I went and sat on the bed, just propped up some pillows, and I just put a washcloth over my face or a heavy towel. And then I would just hold it as long as I could stand on this side, then I'd move it to the side, go back and forth, And I did it for about 12 minutes, or maybe, I don't even know if I did it for 15. I'm sure I did go over 15 for sure. And all of a sudden, just big globs of mucus just came out, and gobs. It was gross, but it was over with. The pain was over.
So this is an old-fashioned incandescent light bulb, but even some of the newer ones do produce heat. I think this is a 60 watt. But you could use a 40, but again, it just depends on how close you get, right? So you decide how close, and it's that dry heat. I'm not saying moist heat won't work, but that's another treatment. This is a dry treatment. And you'll notice here there's earaches, postpartum burning, and the discomfort of perineum after childbirth. So even people with aching joints sometimes will feel that dry heat will work. I'm not a fan of dry heat on on joints. I much prefer moisty. But again, it depends on what you have. If one doesn't work, try another one. Try something else. Don't limit yourself just on that much. Any questions? Okay, let's get flaxseed meal. This, this.
Have somebody else.
Is this for you? So Kimberly's gonna make a poultice, show you the first one. And then you're just gonna follow suit. We'll invite somebody up here and they're gonna make one. They're gonna make one for somebody else. And then the other person is going to practice on that person. Okay, so this, we're gonna go through maybe 4 or 5 of these, take our time. And then this- Sue, do you know if there's a measuring cup?
That's okay if we don't.
See if there's a measuring cup here. This spoon's up here. We're gonna have to move this because it's in our way, Kimberly. And projector. Okay, we'll turn this one off.
It's pulling the cord, why don't you just put it down,
Like again.
just set it underneath the table.
There you go. Great, thank you.
You can use a lot of different things. This is just ground flaxseed. You don't have to use ground flaxseed. When we're in other places, we just use what they have. Like when we were in Uganda, we just used cassava flour. People use all different kinds of things. But we're gonna use ground flaxseed because it is quite forgiving. And it doesn't have to be exact. You know, we all like recipes the first time, and then we usually don't follow them after that.
Well, how much water is that?
So it's a 1/4 cup of water, and we do have these brochures as well in the back. They're green and they have the recipe right on there. So be sure to take one. And you know, you need to have your charcoal at home and stuff. And so all we'll do is, it says 2 tablespoons. I'm just gonna put 2 of these in. So. 1. Oh, that's, I should have put a paper towel underneath me. And then if you didn't have ground flaxseed and you just have whole flaxseed, you can go on our website. You can see how you can make it on the stove top as well. With the whole flaxseed, you just boil it, just like you were doing a vegan. And that's it. So just the 2 of them. And so 2 of the charcoal, 2 tablespoons, teaspoons, whatever, with a 1/4 cup of charcoal, a 1/4 cup of water. It's gonna be quite runny at first, but the temptation is just to keep adding more so you can quick use it. But if you just let it sit for a little while, okay, it will thicken up. So if I want to use this right away, I can just add a little more of the ground flaxseed to get it going. And then these are a little thin. They have some napkins to use, but I really like to use the paper towel more. They're a little more substantial. If you don't have paper towels, you can just use, cheesecloth, whatever, you can find, at home. It's always nice to have this stuff ready before you actually need it. And I am gonna add a little bit more because I just wanna keep it going. Usually I just mix it up and then just walk away from it and just come back. So I just,
How long would we let it sit?
oh, maybe about 15 minutes or so. And, this is, probably didn't put as much, flaxseed in because this isn't an actual tablespoon. So, there we go. So, we don't want it too thick because we actually want it to, have a wet contact against the skin. Does anybody have any, owies or anything that they want charcoal put on at all? You do?
Yeah, this does my.
So if she feels that she has nerve pain, we don't have an open wound or anything like that. So, but she's just in a lot of pain.
It's like it's on fire.
Yeah, it's really. So this is what we're gonna do now. We're going to, this vet wrap, have you ever seen this? It's, they sell it at, you know, farm and feed stores, which, where we're from, farm country. And this is a lot cheaper than, getting an ace bandage. Although, you can kind of sometimes leave its color. So I did it on hubby a few weeks ago on his face, and he had orange on him when he came to work. Do you have a scissor?
There we go.
So, we kind of.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. So all I'm gonna do, this is the one that's, what do they call it? Serrated, whatever, and
So watch her.
just gonna pour some on there.
Watch what she's doing.
So I don't wanna go all the way to the edge because we wanna have it closed on the edge somewhat. And then we're just going to fold it, like that. And the reason I didn't put it in the middle is because you know, it's serrated right there, so it might kind of leak through. And just like that. So now, see how it left this right here? It's nice and wet, okay? So we have a nice wet contact. When charcoal is wet, it has more drawing power, but it's not dripping. Okay, we don't want it to be dripping on the person. So that's not cool. And then just figure out how much I would probably need. So I just kind of go, oh, okay, so like that. So let's go ahead and cut this. Makes it easier than trying to. Then we have saran wrap. Now, I don't like the saran wrap as much. What I like to personally use, and what I almost always do use, but this is what is a plastic bag, like from Target or the grocery store or whatever. And then I just cut it just a hair bigger than this, right? And then I can just use it over and over again. Whereas this gets a little, just do that. So we'll just put this on. So for this one would be better way to do it than this one. So that. It's on. You could wrap the plastic around, you know, I don't like it so much, just because sometimes it can be irritation. So this is the stuff that just sticks to itself. It's just called a vet wrap, and you know, it's just cheaper than using an ink candy you get at Walmart or something.
Oh, sure.
You know what, I was thinking. I bet I'm gonna have to use more because I was thinking it wasn't as. Haven't resolved this way because they didn't, wasn't taking notes.
You said,
That's that. Kind of sticks to itself. What is it called? Okay. Yeah. That's it. I would just leave this on until morning, tomorrow morning, and then just, you know, see how. And then, actually, this is a real deal, so I just have a real person. Father God, we just pray and thank you for simple remedies, and I just plead the blood of Jesus over this dear sister. I just ask you, Father God, that you would heal this once and for all and to relieve her of her pain. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna have these two women do the same thing. If you have any questions, just ask Kimberly and she'll walk you through. And then after you've done it, you'll do it on the other person, right? Okay, so we're gonna do it on the arm. So who's gonna be, you're gonna be the patient. So let's have you stand facing the friend here. And just like that. Kimberly, you direct them. I will,
So just a quarter cup of some water, some water. And it doesn't have, nothing has to be exact, you know, you just really, yeah, that's good. More the better because, it's not an actual tablespoon. So it's really, if you were just using a tablespoon, it's really like, 4 tablespoons of water to 2 tablespoons of charcoal to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed. So it's like 4, 2, 2. Yeah.
Is the flaxseed bill the same as grinding up your own flaxseed?
Yeah,
Because I could grind.
yeah. Flaxseed actually goes rancid, you know, so it's best to just grind it as you go along, or else keep it in the freezer or fridge.
so we've used cassava flour, corn flour, cornstarch, oat flour, oats. One doctor from Loma Linda told us their baby had a rash on his buttocks, and they were traveling and they kept trying to find something to put on the baby. And they thought they wanted to make a paste, but they couldn't find anything, so they mixed charcoal with peanut butter.
Oh, wow.
Mixed peanut butter. And that person was the Dean of Faculty of Pharmacology at Loma Linda. His name, that's years ago. So he was a student at Loma Linda. This is before he became dean. You know, you might feel a little bit all thumbs doing this the first few times, but Kimberly can probably do it in her sleep. She's done it so many times. And you can always ask the patient to help you hold the plastic or hold the bandage, whatever, while you're finishing it off. If you don't happen to have this ACE bandage, you can use just right here. A little tighter, not too tight, but snug.
So what was wrong with her arm?
Well, maybe she fell down and she was skateboarding. And she fell down and got a road rash on her arm that's become infected. And it will, that's what we're just demonstrating. But that did happen to Pauline's son. He fell down, got an infection on some rash infection from falling down and scraping his arm. And that's what they did. So now it's your turn. Yeah. When you wipe up charcoal, use something wet. Try not to wipe it dry because it tends to grind it in. Slowly. You help it. Okay, who else would like to try this? Volunteers? Before I name the corner. Yeah, you're looking at me. Me?
Ideal for
Are you looking for some notifications for sale or?
There you go. Now, left side of this item. There you go.
So if that just on, nails under or anything like that.
Does anybody have any questions so far? I know you're all busy.
What's white? Charcoal.
White charcoal, yes, we're looking for that white charcoal.
Oh, my word.
Well, it's not really white, it's a bamboo charcoal.
Oh, exactly.
And it's a very light grade of charcoal, but if anybody can find white charcoal, they're an instant billionaire.
So what was it those cows were eating that was white, that you were talking about charcoal, that they were eating something that was white?
Very, you would have, things for you. Do a little more. What's gonna happen is this is gonna leak out on the edges. And then it's going to stain whatever it leaks out onto, so always make sure that you go on half an inch to an inch on one side. To the other side, you cover it with structure. Okay. So, see.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, for the rest of you, pay attention. Everybody's working on the disappear. Maybe they have to leave. Yes. I'm always thinking.
Right there.
Did they use them?
But I was like, yeah, so I, I don't. Yes.
Where.
Oh, I thought this.
Maybe you need some work done on it, we don't need it done.
Sipping my breath, I'm just so loud.
So what did their reasoning for that?
Days. Other than that,
Right.
With all these two fingers, it's not being very good. I was half.
so just hang on, we're not gonna leave you. Danielle just came up and asked me that, do we have any kind of suggestion for asthma? And she's had this for a while. And her mother has tried different things over the years, and she's tried different things, but she still has this complication. I'm just gonna relate a story, a few years back, when we lived in Nova Scotia. The pastor asked me to go visit this family. And the daughter was she was paraplegic and she had extremely severe asthma and she couldn't breathe. And she had come back to stay with her folks, and her mother was an RN. And we came in and talked with her and had a prayer with her, and she was really having a hard time breathing, just severe time breathing. And I'm trying to think what could possibly work. What do we got here? And I'm just drawing a blank. And then out of the blue, we talked about some different foods that she would probably want to minimize their phlegm, that produce phlegm. And so what we're trying to do is to help clear her lungs, so make it, at least we can clear her lungs to make it easier to breathe. But then what could we use to help to cause the airways to dilate, making it easier for her to breathe? And I was just struggling in my mind, what can we suggest here? And when we walked into this folks' house, I noticed there were some spruce trees on the hillside. And so I thought, well, why don't we try that? And so I went outside, they put on a pot of water to start boiling. And I went outside and got some spruce needles. And we came in, we pulled our wheelchair up to the table like this. We put the pot down here, and then we use a towel. Let's use a towel to drape that over. Now, I understand that her mother's already tried this a while back. But it's just taking it over the pot, and Danielle will lean forward a bit, and then I'll put this over her head, and she'll breathe in this steam. Now, why would we want to use steam? It's moist. What will it do to the airways? It will tend to open it. Now, I believe you use eucalyptus. But what else could you're using an aromatic. Ellen White uses an expression, there's healing in the pines. Have you ever heard that? There's something about being out in the evergreens that when you're out there, it just, your breathing is naturally seems to be a little bit easier. What is it? Not sure. Now, don't do what I just did. I took the lid off and put my head down a little bit too close, and I burned my nose. See?
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
Good.
Just ease yourself just a second.
Yeah, I need.
You're gonna have to, these are spruce needles that we went out for a walk this morning. And I came back and I was thinking, where are we gonna find a spruce tree? And you had one in the corner of your front yard. Well, thank you, Lord. Now, there's another way of doing this. You want that cool down a little bit as well. But if the person was bedridden, you could use something like this, and you set it next to the bed, and you drape the towel over this. And what you're doing is you're creating a tent for the person. You can also put this on a chair and a hot plate, and you can just let it percolate. But you can also go to the store and buy one, right? They're called vaporizers, right? So somebody thought, this works, this simple remedy works, and they made it into a retail product. But nevertheless, we were in a circumstance where we didn't have anything like that, and the lady was suffering, and I knew we weren't going to come back. And just impressed to do this. But again, we don't want to burn you, right? So oftentimes we have to leave it with the person to make the decision. How close, how long. And you can hold the edges of this tent. Don't get too close. We did this program in New York City, And we had a lady who was very, very congested. She didn't have asthma, but she was very congested. And we set it up in the back of the room, and we went ahead with other program, with the rest of the program. And I forgot about her. Oh. She sat there patiently for an hour. But we would hope that this will work. But she said, I'm decongested. Yes, you're decongested. But anyway, this young woman, paraplegic, she had her own apartment in Halifax. And she actually was doing quite well taking care of herself, believe it or not, electric wheelchair. The pastor met her the next week coincidentally on the street, in her wheelchair, electric wheelchair. She said, I'm just coming back from the physician. He said, this is the clearest my lungs have ever been in my entire life. Now, we would hope that would work for Danielle, right? We would hope that this will work. But sometimes work tests our faith, and we can't give up. If this has become a chronic thing for so many years, we gotta keep trying. And at the same time, are there foods that might be triggering this? And somebody's gonna suggest cayenne or something else in with this. But in this particular treatment, we're recommending an aromatic like an evergreen. Eucalyptus, what might be something else that you might use? Well, you mentioned juniper, it's definitely aromatic, but you could use pine sap. What? Peppermint, spearmint.
Oregano.
Oregano. Okay, I'm just.
Bay leaf also.
You think you would try baby?
Yeah.
What if you didn't have this? You'd be thinking of what else can I use? The steam itself is doing a good part of the work, right? It's helping to dilate the airways, but you're adding something else that seems to make it more effective. And so what I would recommend, Danielle, is that, are you able to smell that?
Yeah.
Can anybody else smell it? Yeah. I mean, we started in the house, Doug, you could smell it when we did it in the house. Right. This may have been boiling a little bit too long, and we may have lost some of that. But you want to start it right at the beginning with the fresh leaves. And this is all we use. Just so everybody knows what I'm talking about. A Christmas tree, right? Okay, that's all that's in that pot. There's some fruit in it.
Yeah.
It's very.
It's not too hard.
It's good.
Sure. Oh, your complexion, that's one of the benefits, right? It's rosy complexion, and it's not artificial. Right? Are you congested?
I am.
You are, I can hear it. Is it panicky?
No.
It's not panicky. Okay. What would you normally do? She is congesting a little bit right now. Why is she congesting? Anybody? There's a reason for this, but anybody have any ideas?
You were congested.
No, she is congested.
No.
You become congested after.
Yes.
Afterwards. Because it's an irritant. It's an irritant, and it makes mucus thin out because fluids are brought into the lung.
Are you congesting in your sinuses or in your chest? In your chest.
Yeah.
Okay. Any ideas?
Start to break it up.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it is probably doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Okay.
It's probably doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, increasing toxins.
I'm not going to go that far,
Oh, okay.
but if there is phlegm, if there's something that's restricting it, and you want it to dilate, it's gotta be loosening up, right?
Yeah, this is.
I mean, when you do this with a smoker, you know, you have these little, you have alveoli, but you have these hair-like structures in your lungs, right? And they're trying to move this junk out. And so when somebody stops smoking, they have the smoker's cough, but eventually they'll burn out those hairs and they don't work anymore. And it takes a while for them to regenerate. But it's a positive thing when they're hacking. It sounds terrible, but it's actually a positive thing because your body, your lungs are trying to move stuff. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening with you, but I would think that it's a positive. It's not a negative. Are you okay?
I have my inhaler, but I'm good.
Breathe. Another thing is to, when you feel a panic and you feel the panic, just bend over and breathe through your nose, not through your mouth. Have you tried that before when you're having an attack? What else do you do?
Use my inhaler
How long do you usually wait?
immediately.
You use it immediately. Okay. You feel like you want to use it right now?
Yeah.
But you're not panicking. Oh, haven't. Okay. Why don't we have a prayer together, folks? What do you think? You believe in prayer? She absolutely believes in prayer.
Amen.
What if we all unite in just a moment of prayer? Is that going to hurt anything?
Especially good at food.
Okay. I'd like to invite you to bow your heads for a moment.
Great.
Kimberly, I'd like you to come up here and lay hands on Jenny. You're going to lay hands on Danielle. And we're going to pray. We're all going to have a season, just a short season of prayer. Come behind her. She has severe asthma
Oh, really?
and congestion. Sometimes that just makes her panic and she wants to work for her. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's have a word of prayer, shall we?
Father God, we just thank you for your presence here. And we just pray for Danielle. We plead
Yes.
the blood of Jesus over her.
Yes.
And we just ask for your peace to just fill her. Just fill her with your peace, the peace of God that passes all understanding. We ask you, Father God, to heal her of these asthma and panic attacks. And we pray that this simple remedy will work. And if this doesn't, that she will find the cause
Yes.
and the remedy.
Yes.
Thank you for her, Lord God. And we just thank you, God, that you are going to give her your peace, for you are our peace, and you've opened up every single one. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Heavenly Father, there's more involved here than just Danielle. Good chance she's a family or going to be a family one day. She has friends. She has church members, work associates. Her influence can tell for many, many people. And she wants an experience, Lord. She wants to feel your hand on her, not just a human hand. She wants to know that you are close to her. She's been through this experience for years. She wants a freedom. And I pray that the freedom that you give her will transcend just herself, that she will become one of your medical missionaries, that she will be someone who can relate to people in their suffering that she's gone through. She'll know exactly what they're going through. And she will be able to do something and speak the right words to bring comfort, mind, and she'll know something. She'll have learned things that she can use without using drugs that can dry out the lungs and cause more problems. Lord, this young woman is here for all of us. We're looking to you. We are asking, humbly expecting you to do something that we cannot do. And we know that you are all powerful. And from your great and calm eternity, you order that which your providence sees best. And we pray this for Danielle and for her future. Bless her, we ask now, for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for being willing. And pray for your mom. You know, you've obviously explored different remedies. You're still looking. Have you experimented with your diet? Never. And since then, like there are things that are useful. How are you now?